I understand, that you seek to do original pieces of performance art, and to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I actually thought I'd be interviewing you.
Ah.
So we can continue your interview.
This is going very well.
Awesome.
No, I mean, yeah, in one way, and then in another way, I kind of don't believe that there is anything really original. Like in terms of contemporary art, I'm sort of interested in what is contemporary, and that maybe the fact that we can call contemporary art that, like in the Renaissance, they weren't calling themselves Renaissance artists. They kind of name the historical period after the fact. So yeah, it's a question: is there new? Is there kind of originality in, I guess, art or making performance? For sure.
Everything that that was once old feels new again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's,
yep.
It's I think sometimes we're so quick to think that we actually invented something or created something, and then through research or as time passes, you realise actually I've seen that before, but I forgot about it, and then it came back and I thought it was my own idea. Does that do you ever have that feeling at all, that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I steal a lot and copy a lot anyway, because I'm quite I'm critical of this sort of the act of creation, or this kind of this position that one could create something out of nothing. I think, especially in dance, because the body, we absorb so much information through watching others, and there is a vocabulary that you draw from. Even when you're improvising, you kind of can be set inside of a vocabulary of movement possibilities. So I think things, they loop back, they come back, but then also there's this question of exactly like you said, that even things that you didn't think at the time, things that come and then you realise, I already had that thought a while ago, or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
When you're coming up with something, when you're coming up with ideas, how do you decide, which one is going to be a good one, and how do you back yourself once you've made that decision? How do you know what is right and what is not? Is there a formula, or is it just complete risk taking, or?
I don't think there's a formula. Maybe the formula is that I try to sort of undo something every time that I come to a new place, and often I respond to context. So I don't have necessarily, there's interests inside of the work and inside of the body and the practice that kind of keep coming through, but often if I get an invitation, or if there's a festival or a theatre or a commission, then I respond to the parameters of, the conditions in which I'll be working, and then the place in which it will be presented, and kind of play on producing other kinds of relationships to be inside of those spaces. So, but then say there is an invitation from someone to make a new work, then I'll have to find an idea. And that often, I like to dance a lot, but read a lot as well.
Sure.
And kind of spend a lot of time thinking about kind of, often when you are also applying for money to make your own work, you have to know what you're going to do before you've even made it anyway. So there's a lot of speculating. So sometimes I kind of think broadly about the body, because it's what I use, and then how it can be contextualized in different spaces. And I read a lot of like continental philosophy and choose like big words. Like a piece that I made was called Monster Body, and I titled it before I made it, so there's room to move. I can kind of reference 1,000 different things. The work that I'm making now is called Miss Universal, so that's like I can, there's obvious things that people can recognise or produce different associations, but then it's like I'm speaking to the universe or not. So
I like that we have both extremes here. We open with Bill Henson, who prefers untitled, and then we come to you, and the name can kind of bring out a kind of creative process. Can you tell us just what does the night mean for your art form? What does it mean for the body and for movement?
Well, I think Untitled is a very strong title anyway, but the body...
Yeah, once. I think Bill's gone. I feel bad for making that joke.
I think it's impossible to be without title. But the body, I mean, mine, I take a long time to get going. So I dance at night a lot. But it's difficult to dance with others unless you're kind of going out, kind of clubbing, and that's your research, where it's sort of, depending on what kind of residence you have, sometimes you can have access to a space and you can kind of get a group of people together and work at night. But yeah, movement, I'm really interested in ideas and relationships and communication, and so I read a lot at night and come up with a lot of the ideas at night, this sort of idea of the solitary space. And but it's funny because I work from home a lot, and we have a kind of a situation where we don't have much privacy. We're sort of on a corner and the lights are always on and I'm dancing around and I feel like I'm kind of being observed all the time. Anyway, so there's sort of a sinister edge with my nighttime practice. But yeah, I mean...
Is it not useful to imagine oneself observed when practicing for performance?
No.
Sorry, I was working
not
that
at
question out
midnight
as I
when
went
you're
through.
like a girl
Yeah,
in
no,
a
that is
bedroom.
creepy.
Like,
Yeah,
no, it's super creepy. But for sure, I mean, I perform at night more often than not, unless it's, I think 5 o'clock is the earliest time I perform in the afternoon, and it's a very different kind of vibe with the audience as well. Like theatre, people go to the theatre at night, so there is this kind of heightened association that you can make with some way in which you're performing to the space that you're in, or to the peeping Tom, or to the idea or whatever.
The last 5 years or so, I've kind of probably got more inspiration from my work outside of my industry than I have from within, and from really crazy places. Like once I wrongly took a song to make a short film, and I didn't credit the artist, and I didn't pay the music rights, and I got in a lot of trouble with them.
Yeah.
And then we became friends, and then they really inspired me, like in a way I would never have imagined. Is that something that you're doing? Are you looking outside, the sphere of your industry for creation? Or?
Yes, I think I'm interested in like expanding the notion of dance and choreography. So, yeah, I'm not at all interested in entertainment or even kind of virtuosic feats. I'm sort of more interested in, I mean, it's not so much about democratization in terms of like a postmodern aesthetic, but it's like, yeah, so we can produce new kinds of platforms and associations and spaces for dance and choreography and choreographic thinking. Like a lot of choreographers at the moment are being invited into museums and galleries. So it's this really kind of shifting from, well, with bodies as well and dancers, but it's a different kind of economy. So it's sometimes they invite the dancers and they realize they have to pay them by the hour. So it's very different to having a sculpture or a painting or something in the space. But then so the choreographic thought is then shifted onto the object. And I'm working at the moment with a sculptor, and she's interested in photography. So it's like, how do we negotiate the space and the artworks choreographically, and how can we think about the artwork as a choreographic score, or the journey of the audience through the gallery or through the museum as a choreographic score. So yeah, it's really about kind of like spreading and infiltrating different contexts and working on dance as sort of something that, especially with the sort of the objectification that comes naturally with being in theatre. You're sort of like, you're observed by the audience that's in the darkness, or they're subordinated and they kind of admire something that they're not able to do. This is a kind of an uninteresting relationship in terms of, I'm kind of interested in like, we're here together and let's see what else can happen.
Cool. With, I was reading something that Barry said, earlier, and he said that, not everybody, is opinion is of the same value. Do you believe? I mean, when, with criticism and praise, I mean, how do you feel, about criticism? Does it depend where it's coming from, or does it, do you listen to it, or?
Yes. I like criticism. Like, I kind of like a conversation. And if it's someone sort of holding on to a category that they know, that they're trying to define what they see for others, I often get called a performance artist, which I'm not. I'm a choreographer, but it's because I'm not doing some sort of ballet repertoire that they kind of yeah, it's more difficult for media that are also trying to encourage people to come because it's experimental work, so it doesn't have a huge audience. So yeah, there's different ways of using language to make it more accessible, but then it can also reduce the form to something that it's not. But any kind of critique is of interest to me because I'm interested in like talking and thinking and, you know, not the sort of silent dancer, more like producing a discourse inside of the industry with dancers, like getting dancers talking more and having to articulate, you know, their thoughts and share their processes in words, which can also be reductive because it kind of can exist beyond linguistics. But at the same time, yeah, it's a useful tool to be able to communicate more generally, broadly.
When you're coming up with things, are you coming up with them? What percentage of it is it for yourself, and what percentage of would it be for, you know, whoever you're creating it for? You know, you did something down in Mona. You know, is it kind of all for your satisfaction, or is, you know, or are you doing it with other people in mind, the people that have asked you to create it? I mean, what?
Yeah, I love dancing and I love my body and looking after it and finding out what comes out of it. But at the same time, I find putting that on stage not enough. Like, I think that if you're sort of taking the position where you're going to offer something to an audience, then it can't be just about your own sort of self-expression, and that it has to perhaps, you know, I mean, I feel some responsibility to the context and to, you know, the politics of the room and addressing that directly. And there's things like, there's stuff that I've exhausted, like I kind of had my feminist awakening and made a proposition to an audience. And yeah, I mean, obviously you kind of grow and you have your influences and you try them on and you try out your own ideas, and it can only ever come from me anyway. But at the same time, I really am interested in communicating and speaking and you know, going beyond kind of the different relationships that are established in like the theatre, mostly.
Growing up, was this, you know, is this what you had in mind? Is this, you know, was this sort of, like for me, you know, like I decided at 5 years old that I would be a cook, and it's always been kind of that road.
Yeah.
Was this sort of predisposed that you would predetermine that this would?
No, my dad was a professional tennis player, and my parents ran a tennis coaching business, so I was thinking that I'd be at the tennis centre right now and not yeah, but yeah, no, but there was always an element of like performing in the game. Like, I'd often win if there were people watching rather than like if there was no one there, like, yeah. But dance was something that, yeah, I did do, but I didn't think, especially even when I was doing a degree in contemporary art and majoring in dance, what I do now wasn't really a part of the education. I mean, I kind of spent a lot of time with the body and learning technical things, but then, yeah, thinking sort of through ideas and, yeah, thinking about how work, is, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Shorey.
Thank you.
Thanks.